Welcome back and welcome to the end of the summer. We were talking about just before everybody joined how the end of the summer means you're that much closer to reclaiming your rentals. If September is for owners, at least for a lot of you, others may be continuing the summer season into the fall using the kind of the high volume of activity that we continue to see and looking to rent out September weeks or into the fall, into October, November. Long weekends are certainly going to be desirable, even more so this year. So I'm sure we'll have some questions on that. So we took last week off, and part of that reason for taking last week off is that I was on vacation myself down on the Cape. So I'm just going to provide just my quick observations. Again, I always come from the vacationer side rather than a homeowner side. I live day in, day out in the vacation rental industry, but not as a homeowner. So I was as a vacationer, I had the opportunity to experience two different rentals back to back. One rental was with my in-laws, so 6 of us in Yarmouth. And then my family, 4 of us, went to Wellfleet for another rental, to a repeat rental. And just kind of a couple observations, especially during this year. The first is on the communication. Things we've talked about over the course of the summer, how vital the communication is. It's always important in the vacation rental industry, but it's so much more important this year. And I had the two different scenarios here with my owners on the 2 different rentals. One was a owner who was not very communicative. He didn't come out with information about what to expect, where the keys were. There was no information, no guidance on what to expect. And when we reached out with a couple questions, we got a very terse response. It just didn't give us a warm feeling heading into that rental. It made us pause and say, we're a little bit concerned about what we might see when we show up. The other end of the spectrum was going back to this home in Wellfleet, where the owner was very responsive and actually proactive. And that was the key. And the key for everybody with any renter is just be proactive with your information. And our owner this year was proactive given the COVID situation and telling us what they were going to be doing, what precautions, what cleaning standards they were going to do, the fact that they were going to take out their pillows and linens and so forth is what they communicated to us. So that, of course, gave us a good feeling going into it from a safety perspective. It's something we've harped on week after week. The next was just overall the quality of the rental. Again, what were we going to expect walking into the Yarmouth home and into the Wellfleet home? I'd say bottom line is both of them were adequate for our families. They met the needs. We knew basically the listings essentially matched what we expected. There wasn't any surprises. What I would say though is that along with the feedback that we got, or the lack of feedback, the lack of communication from the owner, that translated into, well, you get what you get from this rental in Yarmouth, where there wasn't a lot of attention to detail. It was really, one of the feedback that I will give to this owner is that it was cluttered. There wasn't much room for our stuff. We walked into this home and there was one closet for 3 bedrooms. So our stuff, where do we put it? Well, we can't put it down on any of these other areas because it was filled with a lot of stuff. It's the only way I can phrase it. And then in contrast to the Wellfleet rental, where they had not only taken out pillows and comforters for just general precaution, but they had taken out books. They had taken out all guidebooks, reading materials, just everything in the living room had been taken out. And some of you may pause and say, I don't want to have to go through all that effort. And it's a small house, so books meant they took out 1 bookshelf. Instead of 10 or 20 books or something like that. But we didn't miss it at all. From a vacationer's perspective, we were there to go on vacation. It actually was a nice feeling to walk into a clean and decluttered home where all we had to worry about is bringing in our stuff and then starting our vacation, and it felt like our home for the week. And that was a very good feeling. So oftentimes I think these, it's good to see the perspective of the vacationer. And so one of the other things that I would just recommend, as we always do, is get that feedback from your guests. We always talk about getting the guest review, but if there's any way to get direct feedback, what would you do? Like, if you could just get feedback, it may not even be in the form of a guest review, but get their feedback. Is there anything you would like? Is there anything missing? Something so simple that they wouldn't write into a guest review. Were you missing anything in the kitchen? Were you missing any information. Again, the example of the Yarmouth house. I had no idea when the trash was coming. There was no guidebook. There was no instructions. So just, reach out to your guests if you can, to solicit those guest reviews, but also to solicit feedback on ways to improve your home. I think that people that live in your homes for a week provide such valuable information. They're the ones living there for the week, and they can definitely give you some valid feedback to help improve your home for the next guest. So with that, now that we are reaching the end of the summer, what we've experienced, I have a couple questions for Joan that I'll tee up. And one is just what we've been seeing is that given the COVID pandemic, we expect and have seen that many homes or families are using the homes more. They're staying home a little bit more. And so what's the impact that you see, that you've heard of making use of the home?
Sure. The impact is obvious. They spend more time at the home because there are fewer activities. They're going out to restaurants far less often, doing a lot more cooking at the home. So not only is there more wear and tear, but they are, which is important to you, the longer, the more time they spend outdoors, and the better. And we did have the weather going for us this year, so this summer, so they could spend lots of times at the beach, but they did spend more time, and especially in the kitchen. So you have to expect that there is going to be more wear and tear, and I've seen some disputes between homeowner and vacationer about things that were ruined, had to be replaced, and I'm going to charge you $10 for that and $6 for this, and I just think that you just have to be cautious when you do that, because we all have to expect some wear and tear, but not damage per se, but I think you have to just expect that. The other thing is that people are staying longer, and if many of you have had a renter in there for more than, say, 2 weeks, maybe a month or more, and if they're staying for 1 week, if they run across something that's an issue, something's missing, or something's not functioning the way it should, they're more willing to put up with it and less likely to contact you. But if they're staying for a month, those first couple of days, and I've heard from a number of owners, they're calling you a lot to say, this isn't working, this is missing, I need this, I need that. Then it kind of dies down a little bit, but that's, one of the trade-offs in having a longer term renter, because they are hunkering down and they are not willing to just forget about some things that they might find that are missing or just not functioning the way it should. So I'm sure you've all had experiences over the years, but I just see that as more prevalent this summer.
Yes,
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I noticed, because my first rental this year was a 5-week rental. I've never had that before. I'm sure many of you have had a similar situation. And what I found too is the cleaning. And I thought, the benefits of a long-term rental are that I don't have to pay for that cleaner to come in, because I don't charge extra for cleaning. But I got hit. Luckily, they ended up having to leave a few days early, thank goodness, because it took me 5 days to get the house back. I felt like it was a spring cleaning almost.
Yes.
If you've got a young family in a house for more than a couple of weeks, you really need to get a cleaning person in there. Take it from me. I'll never do that again. I mean, I'll rent it long term, but I will insist that regardless of who pays for it,
right,
that we get a cleaner in there while they're there. It's too much to do in a turnover time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And cleaners are often frantic when they come after a 2 or 3 week stint, and there's been no cleaning done. And depending on the renters, some of them are quite good and they'll clean it, and it won't look much different than it did, if it were just they were there a week. But others, I heard some pretty bad stories about how they've left the home. And if you have a quick turnover, you're kind of in trouble. You have to
And it's
call in
also sort of
extra
maintenance
troops.
things. Things happen in a home over 5 weeks. I mean, that was a pretty long one. So it's not, it's the deep cleaning too. I mean, you talk about the bugs and stuff, but it's also things that need to be trimmed and outside. I don't know. There are just a number of things that there are. Those long-term rentals are a little different for a lot of reasons than just the weekly.
Beta, did you do a single day turnover for after the 5-week renter and the next person
No,
arrived?
luckily as I mentioned, the people who left after the 5 weeks, they had to go home a little early. So I had 4 or 5 days just happened, thankfully, in between. And I used every day of that. I was really deep cleaning again and fixing things that had just broken over 5 weeks,
Yeah, I mean, certainly 5 weeks a month is not the norm, although it's increasing in popularity this year. So anything month, 4+ weeks, you certainly are going to have a higher impact. Even 2 weeks, it's useful to have a little bit higher
And if
turnover
it's
time.
at the end of the season, if it's now in the fall and you don't have somebody coming in afterwards, that mitigates the impact. But if you're expecting to do a turnover, to have new people coming in, you really have to allow plenty of time in between.
The other thing is that homeowners are often asking us what to discount. They just don't know what to discount for a month's rental. And, we always say that if it's 32 days or more, they're saving between, depending on where the house is, roughly 15%, maybe on the islands 11.7% tax. So there's a big savings right there. So I'm not so sure you need to discount a whole lot, because I see that Don Gracie here said more hassle plus deep monthly discount is not a good combo. Well said. And also, we, at this time of year, we're often talking about returning the deposits. Just make sure that you do it in a timely fashion. If you assess your home or your cleaners do, and you determine, and you should be able to determine it pretty quickly after the departure of the tenants, that your house is in good condition and you are going to return the full deposit, do it as quickly as you can, because they get anxious and they're much more likely to write a positive review if you send it back quickly. And while you're doing it, if you request a guest review, it's always the best time. You've put them in a good frame of mind by saying, I've returned your deposit, or it's in the mail, or maybe you wait a couple of days until they've received it, and ask them for that guest review. And you know that with our feature where you can use the request form, you can also indicate that if they don't write one within 5 days, is it 5 days, that they will be resent. And, some people don't want to do that, but, people forget, and vacationers might get it the first time and they're busy, and then they get a reminder.
It's no harm. It's no harm when you send out the guest review request. There's just a checkbox that allows you to resend it automatically if they haven't filled out the review. It's a friendly reminder. I think the resending of the request is just going to reiterate your exact same email with a reminder in the subject. So it's not going to be offensive. Most people that receive it, if they had intended to, they'll like that reminder. If they didn't see the first message or ignored it, then it does what it's supposed to do. It's a reminder. And again, you're not going to reach 100% on the review response rate, but it'll help in getting a few more. And hopefully you already have some from your early July tenants and can work on those August tenants to provide those reviews. On the response of a respond of the security deposit, one thing if you don't have this implemented for your homes to look into would be the automatic payments, electronic payments through a service like Venmo or Zelle, where you can transfer back your security deposit back to your guest that day. So if you are there for turnover, or you receive word that everything looks good from your cleaner, your property manager, you can get that security deposit back by getting their Venmo account or any other form and getting it back to them quickly. That too would be appreciated and may entice them to write that review that when they get the email the next day. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Don't forget to get your prices in for next summer. There's been a lot of activity for a lot of interest in people booking for next summer. It seems, and I know that a lot of you say, well, I like to wait and see what my current tenants have to say. So, we've had a lot of back and forth about this, a lot of discussion about, just how long do you wait, and do you give your past tenants an opportunity? There's so many variables here, but one is if they're a long-term repeat tenant, they've come for, let's say 4 or 5 years, I would certainly give them the opportunity to rebook. But if they've only come 1 week, this is the first summer they've come, and you get an inquiry for the week that they had this summer, personally, I don't think you're obliged to even check with them unless when they checked out, they said, oh, I'd really like to rent it next year. And then you could, ask them, well, would you like to book it now? I've had that situation, and I've also had someone say, well, what's the cancellation policy? I mean, she's a repeat, and she wants to come next summer, but next summer's a long ways away, and we don't know what the situation will be like. She's from out of state, and so I told her about our policy, which is what the policy that most people have, in that if I can rebook it, I will refund everything. And I also said I think the chances are excellent that I could rebook that week because based on, past history and the fact that it's August that she's looking for. So, you just have to judge for yourself, but it's kind of a nice feeling to have half the summer already booked, and this summer's not even over.
Well, that focuses on the communication with your guests. If you have that relationship with your guests, you reach out to them and feel like you can get a response that they will provide their feedback on the likelihood of them returning. And maybe they can't make a decision, but at least you'll know that they're on the fence because of certain reasons. You have that direct communication with them. They may say, no, this was a one-time vacation. We like to travel around. If things open up, we might be traveling, to Europe next year. You get a sense for which weeks do we really need to pencil in and hold. Wait, maybe you feel like Joan said, they're a repeat vacationer, you want to give them a little bit more time. But somebody that's been there one and only one time, and get that feedback on the likelihood of them returning and how much you want to really hold them, how much time you really want to give them. Next, over the next week or two, we will be compiling at the end of the summer statistics to provide some input on. We'll summarize what the summer looked like, but we'll also take a look ahead and start to look at not the activity level for the fall, and then also what's the early activity level for next summer. I think we'll find some interesting numbers given that the activity is still very high. I think the activity for all, both last minute availability now, the activity for the fall and the activity for next summer, I think all of that is still very high. So we'll give some numbers on that and hopefully help you strategize your timing. Anything else? Lodging tax, I think, was the update on.
Remember that we had an extension to when we had to remit the payment to the Department of Revenue, and all rent or taxes rather are due by September 20th. So if your June, July, taxes are due then, and in the normal course of things, the August ones would be due then anyway. But September 20th is the date. You do not need to remit them before that date, and you can just do it, all at once. They would take it if you wanted to send it to them earlier. I'm sure they wouldn't, send it back or tell you no, but no sense in parting with it until September.
Okay, I think with that, anything else?
No.
I'm sure we'll come
Yeah,
up with more.
right. I did see someone ask a question about pricing for the winter if you have a long-term tenant, and again,
Don was asking the percentage, how many people really, or what percentage of people rent during the winter?
I think it's pretty small, frankly. But we have a number of blog posts about this. We have one that we disseminate all the time when people ask about winter renters, and it's entitled "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Long-Term Winter Rentals," and you might want to read that. Beta will post it in the chat. And as far as pricing, it's really difficult. We sometimes have said, if you're really anxious to rent and you have somebody who would like to rent your home for 7, 8, 9 months, we often say that your peak summer price for the week is what some people ask for the month. And utilities you should not include in that. Those should be extra and on the tenant, however you arrange that. But some people would think that's too little. Again, you have to gauge it. How many people in the party? How long are they staying? Make sure that they're going to leave. The price is really, you can't just set a set rule for pricing.
Yes, and the vetting is that much more important for
Yes.
a long-term renter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with this, I think I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience here. Again, there is a way to raise your hand virtually, because I can't see all these faces here. Where the participants go? So if you can't, where is it? It's not on my screen. So a couple of people have raised their hands. So I'm going to get started, but if you are looking for how to raise your hand, click on participants at the bottom, the participants icon, and then you'll see a raise hand option at the bottom of that screen. I'm going to start with Joyce here. You've had your hand raised, and
Hi.
hi.
Can you?
Yep, I can
Okay.
see and hear you.
Hi.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Joan and both of you, Jeff, for this site and everybody who's on it, because I've been quiet and I've been writing. I have pages and pages of copious notes because I'm in kind of a different situation. My dad passed this year earlier, and he had 3 homes. And he's 93, so he was renting all 3, well, 2 of them, he was living in one, year round. So I'm not even the least bit ready to rent anything because they're in shape. One of them's in real bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, somebody in, and we're trying, because she's seen us work, we're trying to get hers fixed up while she's in it, which is kind of hard. And the other ones, the people have finally left. So the question I had is if anybody can send me any recommendations for contractors, landscapers, roofing people, I would appreciate it.
Where are the homes? What town?
Wareham, 2 in Wareham and 1 in Bourne.
Oh, okay.
Buzzards Bay, yeah. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. you know, it's a great gift that he left me. However,
Sounds like you have your hands full, Joyce.
yeah, when people live in it year after year, they kind of just do whatever they want to do. So,
Well, why don't you email us, and we're happy to help you and guide you through this process.
okay.
You could just
Sounds
email
good.
info at WeNeedaVacation.com.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good luck with all that.
Hopefully next year I can
Quite a
get these summer.
project. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big project. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Joyce. Oops. All right, next up, Don, I'll get you. There you go.
Hey guys.
How you doing, Don?
Hi, Don.
We're good. Hey, I just want to, it's a comment and a question. I seem to be getting a lot of stuff. I just noticed, I mean, I'm getting a ton of inquiries this year, which is great. So thank you. Home to Go seems like it's driving a lot of new inquiries. Are we tracking that? Like, what's the incremental? How are you guys feeling about that? Because I'm kind of going, this feels pretty good. I don't know what you're spending to do that extra exposure, but are you feeling like it's a marketing investment so far? And what do you think?
Yeah, I remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. We talked a little bit about the reasoning for Home to Go, and we've always used a site like this for additional exposure. So even though Home to Go is new, they bought out the site tripping.com that we were using prior to that. And it is an advertising expense. We're spending less on, say, Google AdWords right now, and shifted some of that money to a site like Home to Go. Home to Go is giving us direct inquiries. And I'll summarize some numbers on that because I've seen Home to Go inquiries come in where it's a new vacationer to Home to Go. It's a new vacationer then to our site. And I've seen them subsequently continue to use our site. And that's exactly what we want. It drives people through awareness of the We Need a Vacation website. So just it's giving you the inquiries and hopefully a booking through them, but then also giving us a vacationer who we can then market to in the future. And again, spread the word. So it's been very helpful. I'm tracking, you know, the inquiries. The inquiries blew up for both We Need a Vacation and the ones coming through Home to Go. We're seeing it reduce a little bit on Home to Go side, but relatively, it's probably about only providing about during the June, July, it provided about 10% of our inquiries. The rest were coming through the We Need a Vacation site.
Okay, but it seems like it. I haven't done the math on my side. It seems pretty high. I guess what I would say is it depending upon how this goes. I mean, that would be pretty cool for me, and I would imagine, you know, my peers here, because we could start to turn off HomeAway, VRBO, Airbnb, and others. And look, you know, from your standpoint, I mean, maybe that allows you to maybe you gotta, if it's costing you guys a lot to get that, I'm happy to, you know, if I'm not paying for those guys and not have to go through that hassle, I'm happy to give you guys a few more bucks for it, depending upon how it goes, right? It's just, maybe I shouldn't say that because I'm asking for pricing. But the reality is it would be well worth it. I mean, if I could not do business with them, it would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we'll do a deep dive
Thanks.
on the data to see what percentage of properties, you know, what percentage of properties are getting their inquiries from Home to Go, which ones don't get them from there. And we're certainly, if we're spending a lot of money with Home to Go, I mean, it may become something that is provided as a service. I mean, it's just, it's those that need the additional exposure is what we want. One thing we did do for that is what we've seen during the summers, some homeowners become a little lax with their calendars, and Ada, Lauren, Joan all can attest that you may have received, if you're lax on the, if you're one that is lax on the calendar, you've probably gotten an email from us. We need those calendars to be up to date because vacationers rely on them, and they yell at us to say, everybody I contact says their calendar's open, but it's not available. That's going to harm you. It's going to harm us. So we get on top of people with out-of-date calendars. But what we also did is we stopped sending homes to the Home to Go site if their calendars are out of date. Roughly, I think during the summer, just now, 30 days out of date. It's not going to be sent for the additional exposure because it can't be trusted. So that's going to be a major factor coming into the next year is how can we more assuredly trust the calendars and that the data is accurate, because it'll be a major turnoff for all vacationers if they come and they have to they don't want to send 20 to 30 inquiries to get one booking. Some do, but most people want to be able to just trust. They want to trust the site, trust the calendar and the accuracy of it.
Awesome.
And also
Rather send you guys my money than anybody else. That's all I'm saying. Turn off the other ones.
when you get an inquiry from Home to Go and you're replying to it, just send them a direct link to your listing on We Need a Vacation, because your listing will have the most accurate, up to date, and it might have a few more details on it than what Home to Go provides. And just tell them that this is your listing on WeNev, and this is where you're going to find all the information.
All right. Well, I'm sure have more on that done. Thank you. Let's move on to Barbara. Are you on? I think you're unmuted. Barbara, are you there? Ask to unmute. Barbara, you may need to unmute on your end.
Now,
There you go.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question that I've got somebody coming from Maryland, and I live in New York, and Governor Cuomo just said people from Maryland are safe now. Has Massachusetts done that same thing, or do I have to? They are planning on getting tested like the day before they come, and then have the certificate, etc. But has Massachusetts said Maryland people are okay or not yet?
No,
Or do you not know?
they're not exempt, so they do have to be tested and get the results within 72 hours.
I told them all that.
Yeah.
Is there a way that I could figure out, because they just did that in New York yesterday. So is there a site I could get on to find out what Massachusetts is doing? Because they're not coming till October.
Oh. There's I mean, the Massachusetts government site has the latest information on which states are outside of the quarantine policy. It has not been updated as of now, but it may be updated in October. But I mean, things may go the other way.
Oh, so
too.
they're not changing it weekly the way New York is then?
No, no. Right now, the only states that are exempt are New England states, with the exception of Rhode Island. That's no longer exempt. New York and New Jersey are exempt. So any other state besides those requires the certificate.
Okay. Oh, well, okay, because Rhode Island was exempt here, but they just unexempted. So Rhode Island is okay in New York, but okay, so Massachusetts isn't following New York at all then, I gather? No. Okay.
Not
Okay.
exactly, but history has shown that Massachusetts has generally followed kind of this
Right.
decisions. They generally have. They just haven't made the update. So I just would pay attention. We can find the link. I think it's probably on our blog somewhere, and we'll certainly post it up on our blog once an update has been made. Any updates that have been made for Massachusetts, we'll post it there.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. You guys have just been doing yeoman duty this summer for all of us. So at least I thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to just underscore what Jim said, that as soon as anything comes out from Governor Baker's office, we post it on our COVID site. So you guys are welcome to go, as Elaine posted, the www.mass.gov website to get from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But just as soon as there's any change, we also update our blog post with our landing page for the COVID resources. And there's a link to that right in your homeowner center too, if you guys haven't seen it.
Yes. Okay. Next, Kristen. Unmute on your end.
Hi, thanks.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
I'm quite camera ready today.
That's fine.
So I took over management of my parents' house about 4 years ago, and I set up a PayPal account at that time. And nobody's ever asked me to use it until just recently. And I was dismayed to discover I got $60 worth of charges for 1 week of rent when they sent it to me, and I don't really want to use them anymore. Plus the money's on hold, so I don't even have it, even though the renters are in the house. So I was wondering if other people had better experiences with other online payments, or should I just stick to the old-fashioned checks?
Well,
Do you want me to respond to?
yeah,
You want
go
me to
ahead,
respond to
Beta.
that, Joan? I, as Joan and Jim will attest to, for years fought online payments. I was like, I just do checks, they're free, and I am a complete convert now. And I was just looking when you, after you mentioned that, to find it. I'm going to post it on the chat thing when I stop talking. But there are so many great options out there now to accept online payments, which are better. They're in greater demand from vacationers, increasing demand. Vacationers like the efficiency and everything about paying online. But they're also, I've totally come around to now loving the ability to confirm a reservation within 24 hours of speaking to somebody. So there are absolute benefits to both parties to go digital with these payments. Having said that, and I'm going to post this link to the blog post that we wrote with different online payments for you to consider that don't cost you a penny, okay? PayPal is one of those, but you have to make sure that your guests opt for the friends and family method of doing it, not the regular way, which does incur a 3% charge for you. So when if you tell people, yes, I'm happy to accept your payment by PayPal, just say, make sure you use the friends and family method. And finally, I also have to mention that technically PayPal does not want you using that friends and family method for business transactions. And there's pretty much no doubt that receiving a rental payment is a business transaction. So, but if you want, I'm going to post that link to that blog post that gives you other options like Venmo, Zelle, EFTs, a whole host of other ones that are free, really safe, and really quick and efficient.
Mm-hmm. Some of them have a limit, right? I think Zelle and Venmo
daily
might.
Limit.
Yeah.
Zelle isn't too bad, but Venmo does. But I'm fine with that because the limit is, I think it may depend on the person. I think mine's around 2,000 or 2,500 or something. And if I can get that right at the time of booking, I don't mind waiting a week. In January, I don't mind waiting a week
for the rest.
For the balance.
Right.
Right. It's just so easy, and it's easy to track it and everything too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think my bank does not, I have a credit union. They don't use Zelle as far as I can tell. So Venmo might.
More banks are, but yeah, credit unions may not yet. But again, it's not just Zelle. There are plenty of other ones.
Venmo doesn't have the same fees as PayPal?
No.
Zero. They're actually owned by PayPal, and they're also not supposed to be used for business, but people do it all the time. I always tell my guests, please don't put vacation rental deposit in the memo. You know, don't advertise that it's a business.
Yeah, for the first time I did an EFT, I guess I gave them my, routing number, my bank account, but that felt really weird, but it got there fast, so.
No, it isn't. That's my other little lecture about that. Those are called ACH or EFTs, electronic funds transfers. They're very safe. They do ask that you give the vacationer your routing number, your account number, and your name. And people go, oh, I don't want to do that. But the fact is, if you ever looked on a check, that's all that information is right on a personal check, right?
Right, that's what I told myself.
Yeah, no, it's very safe. Or if you don't believe me, and you shouldn't, talk to your banker and ask them, go into your bank.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Yeah, mailing checks are fine if there's a very long time between the time of booking and the time of their arrival, but it really becomes difficult when it's crunch time and you have very little time and you really need to find an alternative to mailing a check. And if mail is slow, or it just gets frustrating. And I mailed you the check. Well, I didn't get it. Well, I mailed it a week ago. And it just so if you can find an alternative in certain situations. It's probably a wise idea.
I find honestly, even in January, because what if you get multiple inquiries for that same week, which seems to happen, right? They come in clumps and they all want
Yeah.
the same week. And, you know, if you're saying, well, I have a check, I'm waiting for a check, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
You lose the booking.
Well, we talk about do's and don'ts. One don't is do not say to renters, prospective renters, whoever gets their check to me first gets the booking. And I have heard that, and that is just a disaster waiting to happen.
More and more vacationers are going to demand that they be able to pay electronically. We had, talking with somebody like when we were working with Tyler said, I don't even know where my checkbook is. So if he's forced to pay by check, he's not going on vacation. So you're going to see more and more people just expecting that they can pay electronically. And again, if you're getting an inquiry now for next summer, sure, if you want to pay by check, I mean, most people, if they have checkbook, they're not going to complain about that. But if time is of the essence, if you have multiple inquiries, as Joan mentioned, if you or have a last minute booking, electronic is definitely something that you really need to have accessible to you.
Can I just put a postscript there? Any of you, if you haven't already updated, if you haven't already decided, or if you're not aware of what online payments you want to offer, figure that out. I mean, I have now posted that link. So figure out which ones work for you and that you think you might be able to offer people. But the important thing is make sure you go to your listing, right? And at the bottom of your calendar, there's a payment options field. You just expand it and check off the ones that you offer, because this is really, it's just another amenity that, as Jim said, I mean, vacationers like to have those online payment options. So why not have it on your listing? Oh, look, they take whatever, whatever forms of online payment. So it's worth your updating your listing to reflect what online payments you offer.
An idea. That's an idea.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right, thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen.
Going to move on to, and there's a lot of good information. If you're not seeing the chat window, a lot of other participants here have added some information to the chat, which we will make available completely in the follow-up email. So check out the chat window as well. Elaine, you are up next here.
Hi.
There you go. Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Nice to see everybody. Thanks again for crazy but okay summer. I'm glad it's going to kind of wind down. I had a question. Barnstable's going through some civic association complaints about short-term rentals, and I've been monitoring and going to the online meetings. One meeting started at 7, but nothing happened until 11. So it was very disheartening.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stay up any longer. So I don't know what really happens. And I have to read some of the stuff. But one of the things that they wanted to do was to register, which is fine, inspect, which is fine, increase the inspection fee, which is fine. But then I think there are 123 properties that they are not, the word's not grandfather, but allow. And then after 2 years grace, they would say you'd have to live in it or sell it. So for those of us that have invested a lot of our life and time into these properties, I don't really agree with that. I think they should, I don't know if anybody knows anything else about this in other towns, but if there are people who are not, following the law and keeping good track of their tenants, then that they should be targeted and they should be fined and all of this good stuff, which is also in there. But I just wanted to know if anybody had any experience with that. I have written letters and stuff. I'll continue to do that.
Great.
But and then the other thing is I do use PayPal, but now I'm happy to hear about these other things because it is a 3% charge, and I thank you for that information. So I'm going to change a few things. So that's basically it. And thank you again. I'm looking forward to a few fall rentals and maybe a long-term rental for teachers or nurses. I'm not quite sure, but it always is an issue of trying to figure out how much to charge.
I know.
So yeah, but anyway, that's
Be in touch. We can talk about that. You and I about the fee. But in terms of the Barnstable meetings, we've been following that for about a year, the last year or so. There's one very, very local group there that is trying to shut down rentals. In my view, they will not be able to do this, and they're asking for a number of things. But at this point, it appears that not only will they do the registration in the town, and but that they will say that the owner must make known who they are and their contact information, and be able to be contacted within an hour. We'll get back to, people within an hour. I think what they're most concerned about are investors who there's a problem at the rental home, and nobody knows how to reach the owners, and they're not responding. So, that's one of the things. But I just seriously doubt that they would have would want to shut down a significant number of rental homes just because the owner didn't live there. I mean, it would just ruin the industry in Barnstable and all 7 villages. And no one wants that, including the towns themselves, because they want that rental income. They just want people to abide by certain norms, and in terms of number of people in the party, and just the general, keep the peace in the neighborhood. So I think that in the end, they may be asking for much more than they can probably realistically achieve. I think in the end, it'll be much more manageable and reasonable.
Yeah, they were going to change the zoning to allow rentals in every zone. And
yes,
the other thing that was they were going to eliminate or grandfather, I don't know, any future rentals in residential areas, because people who bought homes in those areas say, oh, it's in quiet enjoyment of their property. They didn't know there was going to be a rental. It's a few messing it up for all of us, if you're not taking care of your.
yeah.
So well, it's just been a low boil for the last year. Yeah. So just keep an eye on.
There are thousands of homeowners who have invested in a home that they may want to be their future home, but they're renting it out in the meantime. And to shut that possibility down would create havoc in the real estate market and lower the prices. So I think realtors will be all over this. I just don't see that as happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Elaine. All right, we're gonna move on to Greg. Let me unmute, or you can unmute on your end. There you go.
Okay. I just want to bring up a quick thing on helping the tenants get familiar with the amenities of the house. For my purposes, I published like a 2-page monograph that's broken down into different categories as to like access to the house. I have a key safe with a combination in there. The internet passwords, the recycling rules for Nantucket, rubbish pickup days and the time they come, a departure checklist. I have found at times people not knowing what to do will leave the house and every window is open and there's a thunderstorm due that afternoon. I mean, I've had some issues over a long period of time, not many of them, where if people knew what to do, you wouldn't have the problem. Mm-hmm. And who to contact in case there is an issue. I don't let my tenants contact my caretaking people. Initially, it has to be screened by me or somebody in my family, because once they contact the caretaker, the clock starts running, and that can get a little crazy too.
How do you get this information? How do you get this information, Greg? How do you get this information to your tenants?
It's an ongoing document that's dynamic because it keeps changing with COVID-19 issues and other things. But I reduce it to a PDF and I email it to my tenant several days before they arrive and tell them that as things need to be changed, they will. But this is the best reference we have right now, and it really eases them into the house. Otherwise, they don't know what to do. Some people expect you to be there to give them the key. I live 5 hours away from my house. I can't be there. And it's a self-help thing, but it really works. It really, really works. I mean, I've had 2 or 3 renters in a row right now, a week at a time. I haven't heard a peep from them, and they've enjoyed the house. It just basically breaks things in, and it's on their computer or on their cell phone because it's in a document. And if they lose the doc tangibly, they've got it in their email. Yeah. And it works for me all the time.
It's a great
I just want to make
idea,
that suggestion.
and it's great to have that information there printed out too at your home. So, you know, they see it ahead of time, they're prepared, they know what to expect, and then it's also there as a reminder.
Yeah, I mean, going back to my example of the 2 homes that I stayed in, one home I didn't have any rules whatsoever and I knew I wasn't going to get any information from the homeowner. The second home that I walked into, I had received a similar document in advance, Greg, and received it by email. And then on the fridge was just a 1-page checkout procedure. So that was a nice quick reference checkout procedure for the house, along with a COVID guideline, a COVID best practices and again, it was just a nice show. Both of these examples and you sending a PDF of the guidelines show that you care, show that you're interested in their well-being and their experience. And here's the information you need to have a good time. And you may not need to, with that, you don't need to be there face to face. So you don't want somebody walking in with questions into your home. So.
Yeah, and it's in your best.
One other quick thing that I cover in. One other quick thing that I cover in that everyone may be interested in is that with a tight timeline on turnovers, most cleaning help wants to get in and out. They probably bring about 4 or 5 people with them. They'll spend an hour at the house and charge you per man hour. Yeah. And I've had some long discussions to how to make that more efficient. One of the biggest issues is doing linens. And my current cleaning help has suggested to me that all towels be done initially by the tenant on the way out. They throw the towels in the wash. If they can dry them, great, because that's the longest time frame of consumption of time to get things ready for the next tenant coming in. And if your cleaning help show up cold turkey, you're either going to have to get a linen service or they have to come back to the house with clean linens. It's just the issue of trying to do it while they're there. And a lot of tenants are very, very happy to do the towels. That's the first thing that's used and thrown into the utility room on the day that they're leaving. Yeah. So I just bring that up as a helpful suggestion.
Right. No, I think that's a good idea. Not everyone can do that, and in our case, we asked them to do the beach towels because obviously they will not be using them the morning of their departure. So I think it's a very reasonable request to ask them to do that. And then I do have a separate linen service that comes in. But that's the linens and towels are just the trickiest thing, and it's just so hard to deal with.
I'd like to throw this back to everybody too. I, for the first time in 30 years of doing this or something, did not provide bed linens on my beds, and I felt badly, but I figured I can't do that. I don't know about you guys, but I have struggled to keep up with the laundry, not providing bed linens, because I have the mattress protectors, the pillow protectors, the bedspreads. I am struggling more than I ever have this year to get through in those few hours the laundry. I mean, I only have one washer and dryer. So Greg, when you talk about doing the towels first, they take long, but unless they can start them the night before, as Joan suggested, to do the towels the night before, are you guys finding was it pretty challenging this year keeping up with the laundry?
They're all on mute.
Yeah. I think
well, they can put their little hands up.
Yeah, I know.
It was no, Greg here, it was no problem for us this year. The first year was really no problem because everyone seems to jump on the timeline. And I put my tenants in the same position as myself, you want to get ready for the next guy. And somebody did this for you, so the house will be ready for you when you showed up.
Yep.
So this is how he sort of passed the baton from tenant to tenant to tenant. And I haven't heard anybody say anything against that.
Mhm. Yep.
All right, just for the sake of time, we got one more in here. Let me go to Carolyn.
Thanks, Greg.
There we go. Okay. It's not a question, it's just more of an observation. I'm sort of in a similar situation to Joyce. I inherited a house. Luckily, it's right around the corner from where we live. It's a very small house. I only have a 4-night minimum, which I gather from the way a lot of other people talk. They just go week to week. And I only do 4 nights, and I have had so many. I mean, I'm booked all the way through October. It's amazing how many bookings. I've had people cancel because of COVID, and within the hour, the place is rebooked. What I did is, in the beginning, when everybody canceled, I built in a day to handle the turnovers. So I have at least 24 hours in between my guests. Because when I was reading back in March, they were saying best practices is to air the house out. So I have the people that leave text me when they've left. I go into the house masked and gloved. I open all the windows and I leave the windows open for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, presumably it's not thunderstorming, to completely air the house out before the cleaning people come in. And then, you know, the cleaning people come in. You know, I've offered to let people bring their own linens. Everybody's very happy to use my linens. I've sent them, I probably inundate them with emails about the cleaning, and I do the document just as the other gentleman said, except I have a binder. Everything is in a plastic sleeve. So when go in and clean, take a Clorox wipe, wipe off the binder, wipe off the things. Sorry, I'm having work done here. And it is so stress-free having this 24-hour. As I'm going to keep doing it as long as I rent the house, because it has just been so much less stressful for me. And the guests have coming in are so delighted to find out that, you know, the house has been aired out. The cleaning people have as much, I never have trouble getting a cleaning person because it's always an odd day on the week. If people haven't considered that, they might want to consider doing that, because it really has made it so stress-free, and I've just gotten tremendous positive feedback from my guests.
That's terrific. Not everyone is fortunate to have a cleaning crew that is that flexible in the timing. That's why so many people do Saturday to Saturday, because that's when the cleaning crews, or at least establish a turnover day with your cleaners. But you're fortunate that you have a crew that can do that and add that flexibility. And you know, I'm not at all surprised that your guests are pleased with that time frame in between in between tenants, and even during non-COVID days. You know, it may continue to benefit you.
Yeah, and it's nice because I don't have to like really get on top of them about leaving by 11 or not arriving until 3. If they've cleaned the house the day before, I can say, sure, you want to show up at lunchtime, that's fine.
Yes.
So it's made for such a much more relaxing summer.
Sure. Yep.
Definitely has its benefits. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you,
I'm going to grab one more here. Nancy. And then we'll have to wrap up after that. Nancy, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't believe how fortunate I am. We've been renting our property for many, many, many years. I have never supplied linens. That's towels and bed linens. I do not supply them. It's never been a problem. And I can't imagine the problems that I hear other people speak of. So I feel very fortunate, but maybe some of these people should give it a second thought, particularly where we have to do blankets and spreads and mattress pads. Maybe you shouldn't also have to do towels and sheets. Thank you again. You're great.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
There's pros and cons of both sides of,
Yeah.
of providing linens or not.
Yeah, I think that the, I mean, people who have the bigger homes that are very expensive, frankly, I think that the vacationers expect to have, you know, more of a hotel experience and towels and linens provided for them, but they also should expect to pay more. So it's not a, there's no one answer here. If you can not provide them and still have lots of renters like Nancy, go for it. You know, less hassle for you, and it makes for an easier transition from one renter to the other. But you know, not everybody can do that.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up for today. Anything else, Beta, Joan?
No, we will be talking about forums. As you know, we won't be having any in-person forums this year, sadly, after I don't know how many years of doing them, but and we will surely miss having them, but we'll do something via Zoom.
Yes, and I think
We'll be in
these
touch.
meetings have taken the place in the meantime, and we'll plan some events for the fall for a larger group. So thank you everybody for joining again today. We'll go back at it. Yes, Beta.
Just one quick thing. I don't think you guys mentioned about just a plug to have all homeowners enter their pricing and availability for next year if you haven't done so. You didn't mention that in the beginning. We talked about.
Joan mentioned it, but
related.
we can beat over the head on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I underscore
There's
that.
a lot of vacationers looking now for next year, and there are a lot of calendars that are still showing. I know you all we're just trying to get through this season, but you know, you could be passing up some bookings now because you don't have your calendars opened up with pricing.
We'll again provide some more data on that next week to help with your planning. But as Beta said, there's no harm in trying to get your pricing and calendar opened up now to take advantage of what's coming, the activity now. So thanks again. We'll see you. We're going to do it all again next week. So look forward to the announcement Wednesday morning, and we'll see you then.
Have a good week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.